Hey everybody, Mike Guillaume, Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast, episode 169. Woo! Coming in hot.
Nick, Mike, you are pumped up tonight, son. I like it. I like to hear the energy. I feel like you're coming in, mid-broadcast form here, Mike. Have you been doing other shows?
I just spent 2.5 hours live on my other channel for the Toronto Raptors Indiana Pacers game. So yeah, well, I'm fired up. Rough game for the Raptors, my Raptors. So anyways, that's not why we're here. We're here to talk MLS. We have a season start date. We're going to touch on that and many more other things. Thanks for watching episode 169, your soccer headquarters, Sons of a Pitch. All right, Nick. So lit it off, man. Where are we starting?
Oh, my goodness, Mike. There's so much going on. We've got MLS's opening day. We've still got collective bargaining agreements. We've got Super League speculation. There's USMNT action and tons of moves and transfers. Well, let's just start with the biggest news, the news that came out today. The MLS has announced we have a start date for the 2021 MLS season. Everyone's soccer prayers have been answered. The soccer gods have been smiling upon us, and we are ready for the preseason, which will begin on February 22nd. The training sessions will begin that day. Opening day, April 3rd, Saturday. Then you've got the whole regular season, and they mean regular. They're going to do everything they can to have a full league schedule, 34 games per team. They're going to have Campeones Cup, Leagues Cup, US Open Cup. They're going to do it all just like nothing's wrong and the world is sane and perfect. They're doing it all. We got the All-Star game as well. Then on November 7th, Decision Day. The playoffs begin November 19th. And MLS Cup. I wonder if they're going to have to move to a neutral site, Mike, because it's December 1st. And I don't know. That would be an interesting game.
December 11th. And no, they're not going to have to move to a neutral site. I mean, they played the 2016 and 2017 MLS Cups in mid-December, beginning to mid-December in Toronto. No problem, right? They did it again this year in Columbus in December. You know, we had one season of moving things back to like a November MLS Cup final. And now with COVID and all that stuff, here we are. No, they're not going to make it a neutral site. That's too important for these teams fighting through the regular season. So that those days are gone. At least I hope so.
I'm with you. I like having that home team advantage. I like seeing the fans come in, both the away fans and the home fans interacting and everything. I love that. So I'm with you. I hope it stays, but wouldn't surprise me if they end up having to move to a neutral site if there's some concern over weather or whatever the case may be. But anyway, Mike, they have not put out the full schedule yet. That is still forthcoming, so we don't know which teams are playing, which other teams and when. But there still are a few talking points. As excited as we are, and Jason Jardim says, thank you for this. Can't wait. So we're all as excited as Jay here is, if not even more so.
Yeah.
But there's still a few talking points that we've got to kind of iron out, that the league's going to have to take care of before we can take the pitch here. The biggest one, Mike, is still the travel. With the current travel restrictions due to COVID, the Canadian teams or anyone based in Canada still might be restricted from coming to the United States.
Yep.
So there's still that speculation of whether or not the Canadian teams will have to have like a home base somewhere here in the U.S. Have you heard anything at all to confirm that, Mike? You're the Toronto sports insider after all.
No,
and, how did that affect the Canadian teams this last season?
Well, I mean, it was horrible. It affected Toronto big time as well. Montreal being in New York, Vancouver being in Portland, it hurt those teams, no doubt about it. Looks like that's going to be the starting plan again. I mean, the Canadian government's not not budging on this. The American government's not budging on this, and now they're not even getting along because of the pipeline thing. So right now that's not even going to be discussed. I think they're just planning on it being that way going forward here, and we'll see how it turns out. I mean, it hurts to see this happen to these teams. It's ridiculous. I mean, these guys, honestly, they should just be quarantining and playing back and forth, and that's it. They're professional athletes. They need to be, if you could restrict them to not going out anywhere, only going to the training pitch and staying at home, put them on lockdown like half these states are doing to, their citizens here. So, look, it's ridiculous to me that it's even happening like this, but I don't see it changing. It's going to be the TFC being in Connecticut again, or maybe they pick a different spot. And, these teams are going to be back here. I mean, the Blue Jays are looking at playing their full season down in Dunedin. That when they start.
Where's that?
Dunedin, Florida. It's right outside Tampa. So it's their spring training home. So they're looking at probably playing there. The Raptors are still down in Tampa at Amalie Arena. They're not back in Toronto. So unless the Maple Leafs are at home because they're playing literally only Canadian teams. So they're traveling within Canada and that's it. Well, MLS can't do that with only 3 teams. You can't have Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver play 34 games together. That's not going to work. And then give them a playoff spot. I mean, what do you give them, like the 6th spot just based on how good you think the teams are? There's no way of doing it. So they're going to have to come down here to the U.S. and that's the way, it's the way it's going to be. But overall, I don't like it, but it is what it is. And nice shout out there. I am the Toronto Sports Insider. So those of you who are wondering, my little tease about Toronto, I haven't put a graphic together yet, but I did start up another YouTube channel, Toronto Sports Insider. I do live stream reactions for Leafs games, Raptors games. We're doing TFC games as well as Blue Jays games once they start. So actually just finished up with the Raptors Pacers within minutes of coming on here. So go check out that channel. I was pitching Sons of a Pitch on that channel. And it was funny. We actually had a crossover viewer yesterday during the Raptors Pacers game. Owen Parkin, if you've come over and you're watching, thanks for watching. And it was cool to see you on the Toronto Sports Insider as well. Anyways, we got to get off of this crap and talk about the Campeones Cup, Leagues Cup, U.S. Open Cup, All-Star Game. What's the deal?
It's all scheduled to happen, Mike. And again, we haven't seen the actual schedule, but the MLS has said this is what we're going for. They're going to play every competition like they can. Now, Mike, the reason I put this on here is because I'm trying to figure out if this is a good move for the league, right? Like they just had a COVID-shortened season. They still don't have a CBA. They still don't know what COVID holds in store, what a global pandemic holds in store for 2021. Not that I want to hang on that too much, but that's why I'm asking the question, right? We had MLS's back tournament, and then we had an abbreviated season. That's all we got last year. And they're going to go straight back to having 5
competitions,
5 different competitions. So I know why they're doing it. We all know why the MLS or any other league does anything. Money. They need to recoup their losses. So we know why they're doing it. But should they be doing it, right? Should they be easing back in? Should they maybe suspend the All-Star game? Should they reduce, not expand that Leagues Cup with all the other Liga MX teams? And are you worried about the health and fitness of these players, right? I'm assuming they can get back to full training, but after this wild offseason, I don't know if that's something that's going to be too smart or how the players are going to take it, at least from a collective bargaining standpoint. So what do you think about having a full slate of exhibitions, games, all that sort of thing, Mike? What are your thoughts?
I don't like it. I think it's an opportunity to get rid of some of this crap. I get that it's just all about the dollar. I do understand that, and MLS needs it. I mean, they need every dollar they can get. But damn, there's no way they can cover all of these different competitions, U.S. Open Cups. I mean, because you know why? Because you're going to have games getting canceled because of COVID. All right, it's not going anywhere. There's different strains out there, and although the CDC and the WHO did change their guidelines now, that your initial positive isn't technically a positive. It's actually the PCR tests aren't being counted as positives. You have to get 2 positives with those. So you're going to see the cases go way down now because of that. But it's not going anywhere. You're still going to have these guys who get through contact tracing and all that, which is, creepy. Look at contact tracing. But, with that,
it's international. With international games between
these international games, these guys traveling back and forth, all that. Yeah. I mean, you're gonna see guys getting canceled or games getting canceled, and that's it. I mean, you're not going to be able to fit these games in for all these tournaments. You're going to have open spaces, and as Jay says, with no fans in the stands, there's not a ton of money to make. Yeah, but there's TV money. That's where the real money is going to come from. Leagues Cup. That's and honestly, I'd say they've got the deal with ESPN Plus for the U.S. Open Cup. That's probably not much. So I would kick that to the curb and you maybe do the Leagues Cup. But
let me just give a quick counterpoint there, Mike.
Yeah.
I lean a little more with Jay here because, look, we all know the NFL and the NBA and Major League Baseball. The vast majority of those teams and those leagues' revenue come from the giant TV deals that they're getting. The MLS, yes, they still have a lot of that TV money, and U.S. Soccer still gets a lot of that TV money, but the percentage of total revenue from fans in the stands, that is, concessions, ticket sales, jersey sales, everything else that goes on when people are actually on location, that percentage is still greater than all these other leagues of what the total revenue is. And, Jay also follows up and says, does MLS make a lot of money off of TV? I haven't seen the numbers. They're supposed to get a greater chunk of that TV money with the new CBA, but we all know where that went. That is, good old lawyers invoking that force majeure clause, which we'll touch on that in just a minute. So the MLS is still much more reliant on people in their stadiums than other sports are. We can't just say, TV deal, they got the money. Or the owners are gonna pick it all up. They've got these massive multi-$100-million ownership groups. They'll pick it up. It's not as easy to say that about the MLS as it is about the NFL. So I wanted to put that out there. Continue the conversation if you need to with that, Mike. But yeah, I'd be fine dropping the Leagues Cup. We've already got CCL. That's already enough Liga MX, USMNT, Liga MX, MLS for me. So
that's where the dollars are, though. And honestly, at this point, the league has to focus on the dollars. They are losing a lot of money, so they need to focus on the dollars. I would drop the what's it's called, the U.S. Open Cup, even though this nostalgia, the tournament's better. I like it more, but I would get rid of that over the Leagues Cup because you're going to get more money from the TV side. They do bring a lot of money in from TV. They still do rely very heavily on people in the seats and the concession sales and the merchandise sales and stuff like that. But they do get a large portion from the TV deals, and that's what they got. They got to be smart. They have to have smart management at this point with COVID. I mean, I think if this happened 10 years ago, MLS could be in serious trouble, like league folding type of stuff.
Oh, sure.
Now where we are, we can handle this, but they got to be smart about it. So
absolutely. And real quick, just a quick Google search just said the current rights package with ESPN and Fox is valued at $600 million for 8 years, with Univision $120 million, and all that kind of generates about $90 million per season for the MLS running through the year 2022. So that's just a quick Google search to give you some numbers. Thanks, Jay. Those freaking lawyers tell me about it, man. I got to work with them every day of my life. So yeah, totally get all of that. And I can see why people would want to get rid of it. I'm not with you about getting rid of the U.S. Open Cup, Mike, but maybe we'll save that for another episode.
There you go.
Before we segue into the whole new CBA and bargaining and MLSPA, MLS negotiations, couple other quick talking points. With Austin FC joining the league, we now have 27 clubs. So there'll be 14 in the Eastern Conference, 13 in the Western Conference, Austin FC joining the West. Right. And also, speaking of COVID, protocols will require testing of players and staff every other day. So they're going to be burning through those tests, but they will have very, very up-to-date information. And maybe that goes along with, Mike, what you said. You need 2 positives. So if they're testing every other day, that gives you the day in the meantime to double check it or to disprove it. So that helps with that. But now,
here you go.
Get into the nitty-gritty. Speaking of those freaking lawyers, Jay, the other big news in the MLS, great, we're going to have a season, but under what circumstances, under what terms, under what bargaining agreement here? So a new CBA was agreed to between the MLS owners and the Players Association last January, about a year ago, but it never was fully executed and put into place, fully ratified. Then they renegotiated a bit, had it done again in June. Then with COVID, it never got ratified. They've invoked the force majeure clause to kind of set that aside. Essentially, the owners are saying we can't fulfill our obligations under the contract due to COVID. We can't survive as a league under this bargaining agreement due to COVID. So they're nixing it. They're using the get out clause, get out of jail free, do not pass go, do not collect your 100% player salaries. And so they're negotiating, right? And the MLS put out a proposal that said we keep all the terms of the old CBA, which a lot of people said favor the owners, and then just pay the players their 95 or 100% of their salaries. So the players get their short-term guarantee, and then the league gets the long-term sustainability operating under an older collective bargaining. That's kind of the good and the bad of it. And the ugly of it is they're going to have to still negotiate a new CBA now. Mike, what do you think? What do you think about all of this? Are we headed for a work stoppage? Are we headed for a strike? Or do you think they're going to knock it out like they always seem to do?
They'll knock it out. They have to. There's no strike happening. I can see why the players would be pissed. I completely would side with the players so far on where things are. Now, I don't know what the negotiations look like exactly. I know that they've been proposed. There's been one proposal out there. Obviously, that's going to go back and forth a few different times until they get something they could even come close to agreeing with. But the players are pissed right now. I mean, this is I disagree with the MLS invoking force majeure to get from the get-go. That, it's not like this was negotiated pre-COVID and, it's this totally different thing. This was negotiated after COVID was around for a couple of months. Mm-hmm. So that's where I have a problem with it. Now, again, I guess the only reason why it holds any weight is because they're saying, well, yeah, it was a couple months into COVID, but we were under the direct mindset that this was only going to last for 3 months. And, and now it's lasted for a year and it's really affect the day-to-day and whatever. But they've got to come to a deal. The league cannot sustain they will be out of business within 2 to 3 years if they have a strike that affects the time. They're already pushed back from their normal season. Right. Remember that. So if they get pushed back even more, they're not playing in CCL. They're not playing. Forget it. It's done. You can kiss MLS goodbye at that point. So they'll figure out a way to make it happen. That's my thoughts. I stick with the players. I think they should get a little bit better of a deal, but they also do have to come down a little bit and say, hey, we're lucky we still have a job in a sense, and come down a little bit on their ends to make sure that this whole thing works out for everybody.
I'm with you. I really do think they're going to get a deal done. We know both sides know what's the most important thing to the other, right? For the owners, they want league viability. They want to be able to continue to profit off their investment into the league. For the players, they want increased salaries. Obviously, I want increased salary, right? Right. But they want it to increase proportional to their play, to the money coming in, all that sort of thing. We saw in the other CBA that the base pay for the minimum wage, essentially, the salary floor, has been increased. Maybe like the salary cap ain't gone and the DP values can't go up, whatever that is, but at least the floor has gone up. So the minimum what the players are making is going up. So it's giving more security for more players. So I think that's what's important to the MLSPA. And I think a lot of the top players in the league totally understand that. The problem is you don't want to come off like we saw baseball, where you've got the billionaires versus the millionaires, so to speak. You know, you've got the owners versus the players. You got the proletariat versus the. I'm sorry, hang on. I'm getting way in some of my history classes here, but what you don't want is these like aloof businessmen, the owners, saying we're losing so much money, because no one's going to have any sympathy for that. So they've got to come at it of an approach of, we need to preserve this game and we need to preserve this league, and that's what we're doing to try and save the MLS and soccer in America, essentially. So the players then have to say, look, we understand that, but we're also trying to save our mortgage payments and our grocery bills as well. So, and as well as play in safe environments, play with a safe league, play with a league that allows them their players right. So you come at it with those two things in mind, you're going to get a deal. You come at it with, I'm losing money versus I don't make enough money, then you're just going to hit impasse after impasse, and you're going to look terrible to the fans and everyone else who supports these clubs. So that's the long and the short of it from my end there, Mike. Anything else that you want to add as far as the MLSPA, the CBA, and all that stuff? Pick an acronym.
No, let's get the hell off this topic. It's boring.
Okay, the accountant and the lawyer talking collective bargaining. Completely boring conversation. Totally. You're absolutely right. So, you want to go MLS news, or do you want to go FIFA news? What are you thinking?
Oh, let's talk MLS. We got to talk a little bit about the Super Draft here. I see there's nothing in the notes there, but I wanted to touch on the Super Draft a little bit as well. The big news out of Chicago.
Take it away. So take it away on the Super Draft here, Mike.
So Super Draft, again, this is a dying breed, right? I mean, the Super Draft is not long for this world, that's for sure. But some interesting moves by a couple teams as far as moving their picks around and all that kind of stuff. And probably the surprise to me was the fact that the projected number one pick ended up dropping to number 3, I believe it was. And I can't find the damn link here.
I know Austin FC took Pereira out of Virginia Tech.
Right. Yep.
So that was even
number 1 overall.
They even said that was a shock to him. They showed the reaction of him and his family in their house, and he didn't even think he was going number 1.
Right. Yep. And then it was Philip Mayaka, who ended up going to Colorado, who traded up to get him. And he was projected to be the number 1 pick overall. He ends up dropping down to 3rd. Calvin Harris picks 2nd out of Wake Forest. And then, a lot of trades moving on, right? And I like it. I mean, I like seeing the trades, these guys giving up, and getting Gam and Tam for these picks is huge. I mean, the success rate of an MLS Super Draft pick is literally like 10%. I mean, out of these 30 guys that got picked in the first round, 27, you're probably going to see maybe 4 of them play more than 10 games this season. Maybe, if you're lucky, right? The picks just usually don't come through. So this is a dying breed. It's going away. Maybe a couple more years. I don't know why they're still hanging on to it. And why they don't try and just get these kids into academies overall. But the fact that it's still there and letting teams like my Toronto FC pick up Gam, I think they got $50K in Gam to move back and still got the guy they were going for. There was chat that they were going for DeRosa at left back just to kind of shore up as a depth piece, because they have no left backs anywhere on the roster other than if they re-sign Justin Morrow, which he's, they're still going to need to pick up a left back, because you're not going to start a draft pick, a 27th or 24th overall draft pick in 30 games out of 34. It's not going to happen, but that was their guy they were looking for, and they still got some Gam out of the deal. So
see, now I'm on the other side of it, Mike. I love the Super Draft. I love this sort of thing for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's uniquely American. I love the idea of having the draft, and I also love the idea of giving other players avenues to get to the pros, to get to the MLS, right? Like, you're absolutely, the future of this league is in the academies and in the youth development. No doubt about that. I'm not questioning that. But I love having the Super Draft because, we did an interview with Cameron Young a while back, who is an academy product over at Plymouth Argyle in the UK. And he said, if you're not signed by a big club's academy by the time you're like 12, 13 years old, like they start to wonder what's wrong with you. Like you got to go prove yourself through some of the lower divisions, you know, a la Jamie Vardy, you know, for you Premiership, for you Leicester City fans, you know. So you have that alternative path here in the United States for guys to still get into the MLS. Plus, some of these guys still want a college degree too, right? They can go to college, they can play in college, get their associates, get their bachelor's, and then still make the jump to the pro if, you know, assuming they're healthy and they keep their draft stock up. So that's great there. And speaking of stock, Mike, having this as an extra resource for clubs, I think, is valuable too. If not in the players themselves, like you said, only 10% of them are going to ever get consistent first team minutes.
Right.
But then you trade those spots. You get GAM, you build depth, you move pieces around. Like it's all just acquiring resources and assets. So that's why I like the super draft. I do see it going away, but not as quickly as you'd want it to. Maybe, you know, in a couple decades from now, when every club has a solid academy up and running, and maybe when the NCAA completely implodes and doesn't have any of this, are they students? Are they athletes? Are they student athletes type of thing going on? Then maybe you'll get rid of the super draft. But for now, I'm all for it. I like the Americanism of it. I like teams having more resources. I'm all in favor of it.
Yep. All right. Well, there you go. So other news, moving on from the super draft, and we've got looks like we got Jaden Penaloza on as well. About Liga MX and Tigres UANL are struggling right now. We'll touch on Liga MX towards the end of the show here tonight. But another thing in MLS, a quick note, Austin FC does sign a naming rights for Q2 Stadium. They're apparently Q2 Holdings Incorporated paid for the rights to Anthony Precourt, and they will be Q2 Stadium in Austin, which looks like a pretty cool stadium. And talking about stadiums, Nick, we will be recording our stadium episode coming up on Wednesday night. So we'll get that out. I don't know when the hell we're going to get that out. Maybe a week or two from now, maybe a couple days from now. Don't know, but look out for that episode reviewing and ranking all 27 stadiums in MLS from the Sons of a Pitch. But anyways, to the big news about the Chicago Fire. Speaking of another video put out, take it home, Nick.
Sure. So I put out a video earlier today breaking down Robert Barich, DP striker for the Fire. The next hot minute episode I got to do is going to definitely have some more info about Nelson Rodriguez, right? Nelson Rodriguez, who has been with the Chicago Fire since I think 2015, has stepped down from his role as, what was he, president? He was president of the organization. So a lot of people hated him. A lot of fans wanted to see him out. A lot of fans thought he was one of the biggest problems that the Fire had. And it's hard to argue against that, especially given one playoff appearance in the last 5 years. They haven't really built a team. They got Bastian Schweinsteiger and then made him play center back. Like that was the biggest thing for him to do. Now, you give him a little credit. They finished third in the East back in 2017. You had Golden Boot winner Nemanja Nikolic, but again, I think that's the aberration. That's the outlier. That's the exception, showing that Rodriguez wasn't that good because his 4 other seasons were pretty awful. I didn't realize this, Mike. I think it was in 2015 and 16. The Chicago Fire were the only team in MLS history to go back-to-back wooden spoon, back-to-back bottom of the table. Like no team has done that to that point. I don't know if a team has done it since. Did FC Cincinnati maybe? I don't know if they went bottom of the table back-to-back. But that's the Chicago Fire, right? So Rodriguez, one of the, I'll call it an excuse for the dealings, was he was trying to do both the player development side of it, sporting director, and the business development, technical director type of thing. So during his tenure there, he asked Hauptmann, the old owner, to we need to split this role up into 2 positions. And whether or not that happened, or if it did, it didn't happen effectively because the Fire as a brand dove and tanked, and the Fire as a team tanked in Rodriguez's time there. Not to mention, who's your coach? Veljko Paunovic, right? No, so he's out. Who knows who's going to come back in? But I'll tell you, Mansueto is probably going to pick someone who knows a thing or two about business, and I would assume he's going to keep that separation of business and soccer. especially if there's a trend in Soldier Field, because that's what the Bears have been trying to do as well.
Yeah,
But Mike,
one more guy to
better
go.
days for the Fire.
One more guy to go. Klopas. Frank Klopas has got to go. He's been hanging around that damn organization for the last, 8 years. He's been part of that whole Paunovic, Nelson Rodriguez thing. He's got to go.
You're going to rebrand. Don't leave the old guy around,
exactly.
Right?
Move forward. Yeah, he's got Wiki. I'm not a big fan of Wiki personally. I don't think he's that good. But either way, Klopas has got to go. The Fire, I'm hoping they can do something big this year and at least get back into the playoffs, man. I mean, this league is better with the Fire being a playoff team, with being a good team. They're not an original, but they're kind of an original, back to 98 and winning MLS Cup in their first season. Like that's, so I'm glad that Nelson Rodriguez is gone. I hope that they get rid of Frank Klopas very shortly and they can continue to keep building on this and hopefully get better and better.
Excellent. Now, let me rattle off a few other quick MLS moves here, Mike, and you just tell me what comes to mind for you. So the deal is done. Jordan Morris off to Swansea City in the English Championship. Then Caden Clark, the Red Bulls product, the young up-and-coming star, goes to RB Leipzig. He's like, that deal's almost finalized, hasn't been officially announced yet, but it's all but done. Yeah. That was pretty much all the talk, even from before he started playing with the Red Bulls.
Right.
And then Lisandro Lopez, former Argentinian national team player, gets signed by Atlanta United. First of all, go figure, Atlanta signs an Argentinian player.
Right.
No news there. But the fact that they're getting this kind of big name from Argentina, I think says a little bit of the change in culture there, Mike. What jumps out to you about a few of those headlines there?
Well, I'm hoping, man. I'm really, really hoping that that Caden Clark can continue his meteoric rise through USL to Red Bull's first team and scoring some bangers, man. Just great goals. And then to hopefully go on and do well at Leipzig. I'm interested to see what type of playing time he's going to get over there. It makes me a little nervous going over to a Bundesliga side with like 8 games of MLS experience. Yeah, he proved he can do it on the MLS stage, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So hopefully with him, hopefully that goes well. Some of the other stuff out there, I mean, there's a few rumors. Apparently this Papu Gomez or something, the Atalanta star, he's been entangled with Cincinnati for the last 2 or 3 months, and apparently the guy still hasn't moved. So maybe he ends up in Cincinnati. That would be great. I know he was tied to Inter Milan. I guess that didn't work out. And Jordan Morris in line for his debut on Wednesday for Swansea. Glad to see that young man getting a chance over in Europe, and hopefully it'll go well. Some other, I mean, you got DC re-signing Felipe Martins. That guy's just a goon. That's just a DC signing, man. I mean, it's not going to help the team at all, but a little bit. I think it's going to start to heat up a little bit more here in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks before training camp, and we'll start seeing some more moves. For
sure. A couple comments I want to make. As far as the Jordan Morris move, people are like, I don't know if he's going to cut it over there. I'm like, come on, the guy's played on the USMNT. Like he's gonna be okay in the English Championship. All right. Like this isn't a guy who's just been an MLS guy his whole life. Like he's done that by choice. He's had opportunity to move to Europe every season for the last probably 5 or so, and he's a starting winger for the USMNT. He's played in CONCACAF, guys. I think he's going to be okay in the championship. I'm not saying he's going to be an all-star, golden boot guy, but he's playing for a good club in the championship. I think he's going to be fine. The other thing about some of these other possible signings here, Mike, so the Papu Gomez, 32-year-old Argentinian linked to Cincinnati, and Lisandro Lopez, 37-year-old, just signed with Atlanta. are we going backwards here? Is this retirement league type stuff, or do you think these guys have a role to play on Cincy and Atlanta, who are kind of rebuilding? I think they can find a niche, but gosh, I certainly hope they didn't overpay for them.
God, I I don't know. I mean, it is a bad trend. Maybe it's just a blip in the radar. Maybe it is the fact that this league is kind of taking a hit by COVID and is kind of taking a little bit of a backstep, right? Because of the financial impact with COVID. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't think Papu Gomez is old to like retirement kind of stuff. I think he'll come over and do well. But I don't like the trend. I hope it doesn't continue, but a one-off here or there, not the end of the world.
Yep, I'm with you. And you're absolutely right that the uncertain financial future is probably tempering a lot of these clubs from signing either big players or a lot of players or things like that. They've projected, $1 billion in losses because of COVID. Again, that's the owners trying to, puff up their position a little bit. But no small number, that's for sure. Hey, let's touch on a couple comments and then we can dive into a little USMNT talk here. So I love Jay's comment here. When I think of Schweinsteiger, I think of that first press conference when the guy asked him about winning the World Cup with the Fire. That was priceless. Just when you think soccer was really starting to take root here, some dude asked if he can win the World Cup with the Chicago Fire, and it was not tongue-in-cheek. I really hope that sports journalist got fired immediately. Sky Blue Citizens podcast, Daniel Young, NYCFC fan. So if you guys like New York, go find the Sky Blue Citizens podcast. NYCFC is looking to sign Franco Cerave from Liga NOS, the Portuguese league, the Portuguese Liga. And he also says he'd rather Jordan Morris go to a Bundesliga side. So you know what? He had the opportunities for Bundesliga. I think he really wants to test himself in the championship and get Swansea promoted to the Premiership and then have a season with the Premiership. Plus, hey, for Seattle, they're getting like $600,000 off their books. This is an awesome loan. Swansea's picking up the whole the whole contract or the remainder of whatever they owe him for the season. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's the deal they worked out rather than a Bundesliga just paying part of it or something. So I'm great with that. As far as Franco Cerave from the Portuguese league, I don't know him. I got to do my homework on him a little bit. But I really think if you have guys who are top level of that second tier of leagues, right? So not Premier League, League One, Serie A, Bundesliga, but if you got guys in the Portuguese Premier League, in the Austrian League, if you got guys in that or the Scottish Championship, right? If you have players who are excelling in those areas, bring them to MLS. I'm sure they're going to be just fine. That's my thoughts, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, Cerave, a good winger. I mean, he's an Argentinian player. He's 26 years old, young age, out of Portugal. £7 million transfer value. Sounds like New York's looking at about 10 million. So, that might be a good fit for a speedy winger like that.
On a small pitch in New York,
confines of Yankee Stadium, right? But overall, the next thing I want to touch on is Jaden Penaloza's comment there about the Club World Cup. So the Club World Cup is next week in Qatar, and this one you've got Tigres representing Liga MX from their victory in the Champions League just it was a few weeks ago. So you've got them going up against Ulsan Hyundai in the first round. That's a team they should be able to beat. No question about it. That game's on February 4th, so about a week and a half from now. And then they'll take on, they kind of got the easier side of the bracket, right? Then they'll take on that the Brazilian team who has not been determined yet. So out of CONMEBOL. So it's the winner of the Copa Sudamericana or something like that, which I think the finals coming up, or Copa Libertadores, which the finals coming up in a couple days, right? So for me, the fact that game is going to be a week away across the world, and that team has to play, in a qualifying game to get into that tournament, I think that presents an opportunity for Tigres to actually get the victory there and end up in the final. Now, can they beat Bayern Munich? Probably not. But There's a chance if Bayern doesn't take it seriously, if they put their B side out there, Tigres puts out their A side. It's a soccer game. It's 90 minutes. Anything could happen. So, yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. Tigres, you never know with the Club World Cup. You never know. Hopefully they do well. I'd love to see a CONCACAF team. And Tigres is one of the best. So
sure. That's the criticism of the Liga MX clubs, though, who have been winning the Champions League here in CONCACAF for the last however many in a row, is that they don't value the Club World Cup, that they're not putting emphasis on that they're just happy to keep saying, haha, we're better than you, MLS, haha, we're better than you, Canada and Central America clubs. Like they're happy with that. Yeah. And if Liga MX wants to move up a step, then they're going to have to start competing with these teams in the Club World Cup, or getting it, or maybe there needs to be more competition so you can feature Liga MX clubs against some South American clubs or something like that. Again, it gets back to the joke, if Mexico wants to rip on the United States, well, Mexico's biggest accomplishment is beating the United States in soccer, right? If Liga MX wants to rip on the MLS, that's fine, but that's their only accomplishment, is that they beat MLS teams. They don't do anything else anywhere else. So that's kind of my take on it as well, Mike. So thanks for catching that comment and touching on the Club World Cup. You ready to move on to some more international talk, some USMNT?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Awesome. And this was the other big announcement from the last few days here. And now that we're squarely in the second half of the show, we can definitely focus in here on USMNT announced their friendly against none other than Trinidad and Tobago, Mike. Right? This is the club they're going to pick to play a friendly against, because it's still to prep for the next World Cup qualifying. Yeah, let's play the team that knocked us out in 2018. But exactly, that's not anything to do with it. We already played them in the Gold Cup. We already got our revenge, even though it wasn't a revenge game, right? None of that. This just happened to work out for everyone's schedule, and it's going to be played down in Exploria Stadium in Orlando on January 31st. I guess the kind of unofficial home of U.S. soccer for the time being.
Seems like it, right?
So I'm pumped, man. What was your reaction to, hey, we're playing TNT in a friendly at the end of the month?
I'm excited. It's another chance to watch USMNT. I'm excited about it. It's not the first team. It's not, it's a January camp friendly, but it's a USMNT game. So I'm happy about it. And you know what? We'll be live doing live stream reaction for USA and Trinidad and Tobago Sunday night, 6:00 Central Standard Time on FS1 is the broadcast. And of course, hanging out with Nick and myself with our live stream reaction commentary and play-by-play or whatever you want to call it. So I can't wait. I'm excited about it. I want to see what some of these young kids have to offer. I want to see these young guys on the pitch together and see if anybody really stands out.
Absolutely. And there's a few guys. It's funny. Orlando City has 4 players who are, 3 on the U23 squad and 1 on the senior team, Chris Mueller. So Orlando City, apparently they've got some talent. Who knew? Who knew? But real quick, you want to run through the roster on this and see what jumps out to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, everyone, it's a very young roster. I think they said here, 23 years, 302 days. So about 24 years old is the average. Right. The also average for caps is 10. The average capped player is 10. And you know who's throwing the curve off? Josie Altidore with 115 caps. He's on the squad. So he's totally blowing the curve on this one, because the goalkeepers have 0 caps. The defenders have 24 caps. It's a very young and inexperienced squad. So let's start with the strikers, since I already brought up Josie. You got Josie, Paul Areola, a couple of vets, then Daryl DK, Jesus Ferreira, Jonathan Lewis, and Chris Mueller. I'm looking forward to seeing DK put on the red, white, and blue and see what he can do there, Mike. Any of those forwards jump out to you?
Yeah, I mean, please let this be Altidore's sending off match, please.
Yeah.
I know it's not going to be. They're going to have him play. I can see him bringing him in the qualifying. This is the perfect opportunity. Crap game that means nothing. Just put him out there for the start. 30 minutes in, take him off to a standing ovation of the limited capacity, and goodbye, Josie. anyways, that's not going to happen. I want to see Daryl DK out there for sure. And Mueller. I mean, Mueller showed up the last time out. So I think it'll be interesting to see if he can show up again and really put Berhalter in a tough spot to say, hey, maybe we got to look at this guy.
Right. And that's it. Jonathan Lewis is going to be the other one who's like, I got to bump off Chris Mueller and Daryl DK because there's at least 2 or 3 other guys who are fighting for that position who are playing in Europe, who are essentially a given, on the roster, like a Sargent or a Zardes or a Pulisic if he hasn't played up front at all, guys like that. Well, anyway, let's move on to the midfielders here because we're about 45 minutes into this show. Kellen Acosta, Sebastian Legit, another guy who maybe is getting a swan song. Benji Michel, another Orlando player. Andres Pereira, Orlando. Christian Roldan, I wouldn't mind seeing him get bumped by a young guy. Tanner Tessman of FC Dallas had a great year this year for Dallas. Jackson Ewell of the Quakes. Mike, what's your speculation on the midfield there?
Midfield, I think, looks pretty strong. For a young team, I'm glad to see Kellen Acosta getting another shot in there. Legit. Why is Legit called into every camp? I mean, he's been called into the first team camp, the European player camp, because his team wasn't in the playoffs. He gets called into the December camp. Now he's getting called into the January camp. What else do you need to see from the guy?
Right.
Are we just filling spots because we have to fill spots? Or what is this? Because to me, he shouldn't have been on all 3 rosters. Maybe 1, maybe 2 of them. That's it. Benji Michel, I don't really see him as a USMNT guy. I mean, he's not. He's decent. To me, he's more of a striker for Orlando than a midfielder. But Pereira, we talked about him last episode. Tanner Tessman, young kid, same thing. Jackson Ewell. I'm excited to see the young guys get an opportunity.
For sure.
As well as I think Kellen Acosta, see if it's kind of his last chance.
Well, we've seen it with Berhalter, having Michael Bradley and Will Trapp play long beyond what people thought was their usefulness. Mm-hmm. I think that's what he's doing with Kellen Acosta and Sebastian Legit, right? Let those guys kind of bring up this young crop. And if they can't get through to Tessman, Ewell, Roldan, Michel, Pereira, then Berhalter knows he can move to a different group of guys. But for me, suit up Pereira, get him in, get him out there. He made the switch from Colombia to the United States. He played in a couple Youth World Cups for Colombia. We need to see him in red, white, and blue as soon as possible, and just see what he's got. Now, looking at the defenders, long list here. Julian Araujo, George Bello, Kyle Duncan, Aaron Herrera, Aaron Long, Mauricio Pineda. Go check out my prior 1 Hot Minute video on Mauricio Pineda. Could be one of the top defenders in MLS this year. He wasn't too far off Walker Zimmerman statistically last season, who's also on the roster, along with Miles Robinson and Sam Vines. So I'm starting to buy into Mauricio Pineda, call it home team bias, call it the fact that I did the video on him. I like him. I like him. I would love to see him start in the middle next to Zimmerman, 2 top center backs from MLS, cutting their teeth together, so to speak. So that's what I'm looking at in the defense, Mike.
All right, yeah, I like the young core. I mean, Kyle Duncan coming in, Herrera, who's getting some Serie A attention right now, apparently, as well. Aaron Long, I don't need to see anything from him. He's proven to me. Sam Vines, Miles Robinson, Mauricio Pineda, those guys. I'm excited to see them get some minutes and in the red, white, and blue and see what they can do. I'm excited to watch Sam Vines. I think this is a chance for him to really break out with Colorado this season. Maybe make his move further into the USMNT conversation as well as possibly into Europe after this season, if he can have a good year. Very
high on Sam Vines. I'm not there yet, but I haven't watched enough of him, so that could be it. And then finally, the goalkeepers. You got Matt Freese of the Union, JT Marcinowski of San Jose, and Matt Turner of New England. So this is a total MLS roster. And as far as the goalkeepers, I don't know, man. Like, I guess Matt Turner's your starter out of these 3, and then what? You give, maybe Freese a half, and Marcinowski the training experience, right? I don't know what to tell you about these goalkeepers here, Mike. In the grand scheme of USMNT goalkeeping player pool, I think it's like Stefan, and then pretty much everyone else. Maybe give Turner a little bit of an edge, and that's about where I'm at with it. What do you think about the goalkeeping?
Yeah, it's Matt Turner. He's got to be the starter. Freeze can't even break a start for the Philadelphia Union. How the hell is he going to play for the USMNT? I mean, maybe it's being nice. Maybe he's got dirt on Berhalter or something. He's like,
well, at least he didn't call it
something. I don't know, maybe. But look, it's pretty much straight up Matt Turner's game, and maybe Marcinkowski gets in at some point. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear what's going on there.
I'm just happy he didn't call it Bill Hamid again. That's all.
Right.
Real quick to close out the USMNT Trinidad and Tobago Sky Blue Citizens podcast. Daniel Young asked if we know anything about TNT's roster and their tactics, and I did take some notes on this. And Trinidad and Tobago, for a couple articles I read, they're trying to work in some new players as well, get ready for World Cup qualifying. So I don't expect them to try and bunker and counter and get a result. I expect them to actually try and play against the United States. Maybe part of those tactics in the second half are bunker and counter, just so you can try that out. But I expect it to be, as much of a practice game, a true friendly, as the United States is going to take it. So as far as some of their names and rosters and where they play, they're stronger in the back. Their forwards don't stand out, but their back line, I recognized a couple of their names because you've got Aubrey David, a defender who plays for Saprissa, the top club in Costa Rica. You got Alvin Jones, a defender who's with RSL now. Atala Guerra, a midfielder of the Charleston Battery, USL. Another USL player, Dre Fortune, midfielder for North Carolina FC. Kaleem Highland, he's now playing in Saudi Arabia, but early on in his career, he spent 5 years in Genk over in Belgium, which is like considered a European development one, almost like a poor man's Ajax. Then you've got Josiah Trimmingham, a defender from just north of where we're at here, Forward Madison in USL League One, Chicago Fire affiliate. Maybe we see him work his way up to the Chicago Fire first team. And here's a name for you, Mike, on Trinidad and Tobago, winger Ryan Telfer.
Yeah.
Ryan Telfer?
Yeah, played with TFC for about a year and a half. Never really cracked the first team much. Got a few appearances with TFC. Ended up going out on loan to York 9 in the CPL and played pretty decent for them. And his allegiances are with Trinidad.
There you go. You're right, Mike. He was with TFC 2 for a year, then TFC, and now with York 9 permanently. So that is kind of the competition we're looking at. So it's not going to be a cakewalk for the USMNT, right. Especially considering this is the US's like C roster, maybe third string roster. And again, it gets to the fact that all the soccer in the U.S. is just lifting the level of play in CONCACAF up so much because it's MLS, USL Championship 1-2, NASL. All those things are just where all these other players can go because their countries might not be able to support a big infrastructure. So with that being said, I want to turn it over to you, Mike. I've gotten all my talking out. At least for this. We're going to do a USMNT Time Machine episode a little bit later. But that's everything I wanted to touch on from a domestic and international perspective, Mike. So whatever's on your mind, and bring us home, brother.
Yeah, so just wanted to touch on Liga MX. My picks were trash again.
You'll get there.
Not very good at picking Liga MX, flirting with even if I should even do a video again this week because they were so bad. But overall, Atletico San Luis, I was saying that they were playing better, and they definitely were. They ended up getting the victory over Chivas 3-1. San Luis, that trash team, I didn't think that they were going to be any good. They ended up playing well the first couple games, and now they beat Chivas. So good on them. Definitely made my pick look like trash. Puebla and Tijuana. Finally, Tijuana gets the victory, gets a goal, beats Puebla. I said Puebla was going to win. Mazatlan and Santos Laguna. I'm thinking, Santos, best team in the league. They got this. Nope, draw, 0-0. Tigres Atlas, at least I did get that one. Tigres with a 2-0 victory. Toluca and Necaxa, 2-0 for Toluca. Pumas and Querétaro with the upset over Pumas, 2-0. And then Pachuca and Cruz Azul are playing right now 0-0 in like the 28th or 30th minute. So that is a couple more games coming up tomorrow. We've got Club America and FC Juarez, as well as not Manchester. I'm reading the comments. Monterrey and Club Leon tomorrow as well. So, or that one got postponed or something. It's got a weird date on the Liga MX website. I don't know. It's weird. But anyways, that's Liga MX recap. Can't wait for MLS to come back. Really can't. Excited. We'll be recording our stadium episode here over the next few days, getting that edited up as well. And lots of content. 98 France World Cup Time Machine coming out probably Thursday or Friday. Same thing. Maybe I'll do another Liga MX picks and predictions. I don't know. We'll see. But other than that, I'm pretty much cleared up. 55 minutes in. Nick, take us home, man.
Well, everyone, thank you for viewing. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your support, both in the comment section as well as following us on Facebook at Sons of a Pitch, on Twitter at SOPSoccer. Mike's running our Instagram page, so find us on Instagram. Reach out to him there. Occasionally he posts some funny stuff. We also, if you want to actually support the show, you can find us on Patreon as well as on the Cash app. Referral code FRQWGRS. If you put that code in and send, you get $10 free if you send 5. So send us 5, you pocket 5. It's just that simple, right? So support us, support what we do. Help me figure out my lighting here so I don't lean back and get a blue glare on my face. Mike, what's the Instagram handle here? We got a question from
Sons of a Pitch Soccer.
At Sons of a Pitch Soccer. When in doubt, it's Sons of a Pitch Soccer.
You got it.
So thank you to everyone for watching, for listening, for viewing, for chatting, and for just helping us grow the conversation of soccer in the United States. On behalf of my good friend and fellow host, Mike Guglielmi, I'm Nick Pateras for the Sons of a Pitch and American Soccer Podcast. Have a great night, everyone.